Good afternoon and welcome back to Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at MarketSite is Ivan Feinseth. He's the CIO and Director of Research over at Tigress Financial Partners. We're going to take a dive into the global macro markets. Ivan, thanks so much for joining me on the show today. Now, you remain bullish on stocks. What do you think is going to be the key driver in U.S. equity markets?
Three things. One, strong corporate results, as we continue to see. The second is strong economic data, as we are seeing for the most part. A little bit of pullback in the most recent economic data, a little softness in housing. But the biggest thing is, I think, that once we can get some kind of positive resolution to the trade tariff war that we are kind of in, I think that could be a huge catalyst for a snapback rally that could send the market up significantly.
What's your opinion in terms of timing on the resolution of trade? And if so, do you think that can lend some momentum to a new NAFTA agreement?
Yes, I think what has started the momentum for the NAFTA agreement was the EU agreement that we saw last week between Juncker and President Trump.
Well, I mean, what exactly is Trump's strategy on China? Because even this week we're hearing, more headlines about him imposing more tariffs than initially expected. How could that potentially impact the markets? We're seeing kind of a sideways motion now, but I think it's interesting, as you said before, if this does get resolved, it could be,
I
really
believe his approach is to apply the most amount of leverage you can in whatever type of leverage you have. He has said, trade wars are easily winnable depending on who has the most leverage. First, he believes that China has more to lose because we import $500 billion from China. They only import $130 billion from us. So the tariffs on the $500 billion would be significantly more impactful to them than tariffs on $130 billion from us. But what is playing out is the fact that, when they first started talking about tariffs, our market sold off from its peak in last January, and their market peaked in last January. We are about less than 2% from our all-time high. The Chinese stock market, as measured by the Shanghai stock market composite, is still down over 20%. So in this whole process, we're down now very little, and the Chinese stock market is down over 20%. And that's the other leverage point that he believes exists, because that's a serious pullback in the market. So depending on how much pain that China can endure in their stock market, in addition to the potential tariffs, is what I believe Trump believes his leverage point is.
All right. Now, this week on Wednesday, the Fed announced it's keeping rates unchanged. What are your expectations for the remainder of 2018 in terms of more hikes that are on the table and the potential impact to the markets there? Because I think the Fed's been pretty clear in telegraphing their message.
Well, I believe they'll increase another 25 basis points in September and stop there. However, I wouldn't mind another 25 basis points in December. I would like to see a steeper yield curve. For me, that indicates a stronger economy. The fact that the Fed has finally started raising rates about a year and a half ago, after almost 8 years of almost zero interest rates, shows that the economy is now strong enough to withstand growth as we start to see an increase in interest rates. So a flat yield curve and zero interest rates is not really a normal environment. A positively sloped yield curve with interest rates in the low twos on the short end, even low threes on the long end, is to me indicative of a much more healthier economy.
All right, and to wrap up, typically we keep politics out of the market, but do you think that the midterm elections, considering the hype that's going into them, could potentially impact the markets as well, depending on the results?
I don't believe we will see a blue sweep. I think that there will be, Republicans will at least maintain their majority in both houses and even slightly pick up a few seats. The big part is the governor elections. There are now 36 governors up for re-election in November, and we're already seeing that with this Supreme Court ruling of the gaming, sports betting, they are pushing more and more power back to the states, so governors are going to have a more important role over time. So that's going to be the big wild card there.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us at MarketSite, and thank you for joining me throughout the day. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.